Well, Bill, another beautiful day or night. Yep. Hope your five senses work, health, and strength is good. What? And to you Xbox fans again, Xbox Tribe, Xbox Nation, Xbox Universe, Xbox World, Xbox Legion, what's good? Xbox Mob, me. What's up with it? Xbox Squad, what's up with it? Look, I was looking at some articles. Actually, I was reading 3 of them. I was reading 2 on the Call of Duty situation. But then there's this one that caught my attention too. Talking about the Xbox user base. Says here, Microsoft gives console install base numbers. After years of secrecy, Microsoft has revealed full console install base numbers as it argues against the UK CMA for Activision merger. Says here, Microsoft has officially revealed the Xbox console platform install base as of 2021 as a part of the new argument against the UK Competition Market Authority regulatory body. Says here, the CMA, which is basically the UK version of the FTC, is directly challenging the Microsoft Activision merger. To me, the CMA is like a bunch of PlayStation fanboys. But anyway, it says here, now Microsoft has fired back with an in-depth 38-page document making a case on why the $70 billion merger with Activision should be approved. While most of the information in the filing is redacted, we do get some very interesting data regarding consoles. And it says here, according to Microsoft, the Xbox console platform currently has an install base of 63.7 million system as of 2021. This excludes PC and mobile, which are now part of the Xbox ecosystem. PlayStation is ahead of Xbox in all relevant metrics. Microsoft say Sony is the market leader of console and has been over 20 years. Its PlayStation platform is ahead of Xbox in all relevant metrics, as is Nintendo. PlayStation install base of console is 151.4 million in 2021. It's more than double the size of Xbox 63.7 million in 2021. And then this shows the 151.4 million for PlayStation, 103.5 million for Switch, Nintendo, and then 63.7 million. And then it says here, Microsoft also notes that PlayStation has a base of 151.4 million systems. This figure does not match up with the data that Sony has provided regarding PS4 and PS5 shipments. It says as of December 31st, 2021, the PS4 had shipped 117.1 million units, whereas the PS5 has shipped 17.3 million units. Both PS4 and PS5 shipment combined for this period is 134.4 million units. So where did Microsoft get the other 17 million units? And then it says here, the only thing that makes sense in the inclusion of other active PlayStation hardware, which may include PlayStation VR, PlayStation 3, and even PlayStation Vita handheld, which are potentially collective, all categorized as a part of the PlayStation hardware ecosystem. It's important to remember that Xbox figures also include Xbox Series X and S sales too. Microsoft told Brazilian regulators at CADE that the PS4 has sold twice as many Xbox One's console. A quick bit of math showed that the Xbox One platform has sold less than 58.6 million units worldwide. And that's the end of the article. So, look, when it comes to hardware sales numbers, look, Nintendo, remember Sega was in the console race, right? But Sega gave the keys to Microsoft, right? If you look on the Dreamcast when it says powered by Windows CE. Nintendo been in the console business for a long time, so they have a nice user base, right? PlayStation built a nice user base off PlayStation 1. But then when the PS2 kicked in, Sony built a nice user base off the PlayStation 1. But when the PS2 came in, and then it was the only console with a DVD player, the PlayStation user base got big. And then Microsoft came in right when the PlayStation 2 just came in. So Sony has a huge head start. So Nintendo's been around for a while, and Microsoft just came in the console business, so they had to build a foundation too, and go on from there. But of course, Sony will always have a lead on Microsoft because of the PlayStation, because of their start with PlayStation 1, and then capitalizing off the fallout between Nintendo and Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix. So PlayStation will always have a bigger user base. But one thing Microsoft can do is stay competitive, you know, by staying competitive and adding features to the Xbox, and trying to get exclusive games, and go on from there, but surpassing Sony, Sony built a huge foundation, man, with that PlayStation 1. Because to me, when it comes to the PlayStation 1, to me, it's like the entire gaming industry was against Nintendo. And the way the developers were showing their anger, like, towards Nintendo, it was like the amount of games the PlayStation 1 was getting. For every one game that was dropping on Nintendo, like the Nintendo 64, PlayStation was getting like 10 or 8, So, to me, the industry was really going at Nintendo over the whole cartridge, CD versus cartridge. So, Nintendo had to find other means, but when Sony and Square got together, the floodgates opened, and that's when RPGs became popular, because of the PS1. I mean, don't get me wrong, Square was on Nintendo before, on the Super Nintendo, but when that fallout happened with the 64, when Nintendo decided to be stubborn and went to cartridge, Sony took Square, and they became like this. So the floodgates opened, and it was like the entire gaming industry was going at Nintendo over their decision for cartridge. But anyway, Sony built a huge user base. But Microsoft, on the other hand, they had just started with the Xbox, so they had a lot of things to learn. And when Sony came out with that PS2, and the PS2 had a DVD player, the PlayStation user base even got bigger. So when Microsoft came out with the Xbox, they didn't even have a DVD player. They had to make an adapter for the original Xbox to play DVD. So Microsoft had to build their user base, from the ground up. But catching up to Sony, that's going to be a huge task. So the only thing Microsoft can do, is, like I said, is like stay competitive by getting new games and stuff like that. So that's their way. That's their way of, like, maintaining their relevancy in this game industry. And so far, they're doing pretty good. And they had to do what they had to do to to get Xbox where it needed to be. When Xbox One came out, the 360 did pretty. The 360 had the red ring of death. They never gave up. They kept fighting. The Xbox One came out. They screwed up in the beginning. They screwed up, but then they brought in Phil Spencer and made some huge turnarounds. And you know, they learned from their mistakes, and you know, they kept moving. And to me, when they got Phil Spencer, that's when, to me, Microsoft really started to flex their muscles. Like, okay, we're gonna show you guys that we mean business. I mean, of course, the PlayStation user base is big, but in order to, you know, to survive in this you know, console market, you got to stay competitive. So once Phil Spencer came in, Microsoft was moving. So of course they were going to have a hard time catching up to that user base that Sony has, but they still can stay competitive and maintain relevancy and let the gaming industry know that they're very serious about their gaming. They do take video games very serious. So to me, Xbox, to stay competitive, you know, Microsoft had to do what they had to do. So I mean, Sony will always have that lead over Microsoft because of their head start with the PlayStation 1. Now, if Microsoft had started the same time when Sony started, maybe the situation would be different. You know, maybe the situation would be in Microsoft's favor. Maybe Microsoft would have sold more consoles than PlayStation. But since PlayStation had that huge that head start, and since they, you know, they're a Japanese company, and you know, Nintendo is a Japanese company, and then you put Square in the mix. They were able to build a huge foundation off Nintendo's mistake. You know, so Microsoft had some grounds to cover, but so far they're doing pretty good, man. They're doing really good. You know, and based on the moves that they just made, with the Activision Blizzard deal, they exposed Sony. To me, they did, because to me, Sony was using Square Enix as a force field to make it feel like they were untouchable. But their real bread and butter was Call of Duty, and Call of Duty has been consistent since it came out. You know, but then now Call of Duty now is a two-headed monster. Now. You got Warzone, and then there's your regular Call of Duty with the multiplayer plus the story. So, you know, Call of Duty was Sony's bread and butter. And to me, when Activision Blizzard was at their weakest, Sony never rise to the occasion. It's like they never cared. And Microsoft saw an opportunity with Activision Blizzard, and they just swooped in like some eagles and got them. You know, and now Sony has been exposed. You know, to me, Sony was taking the gaming industry for granted. All they cared about was exclusives. But you know, as the studios, I don't think they really cared until Microsoft made that purchase with Activision Blizzard. Now they want to act like they care, but to me, it's too little, too late. You know, so when it comes to this, the whole Activision Blizzard deal, I think the deal is going to go through. You know, based on the fact that the shareholders at Activision Blizzard all agreed on this. You know, Microsoft came to their rescue. Sony didn't. Sony and Nintendo was sitting on the sideline watching when Activision Blizzard was going through their turmoil. Phil Spencer, being at Microsoft, being the head of the gaming division at Microsoft, saw an opportunity, went to the heads at Microsoft and said, we need to jump on this. We can't sit there and let them go through their problems like this. And like what Phil Spencer said, it's not what they can do for us, it's how can we help you. So they were like, okay, what y'all think? And they was like, should we get involved? Is it any of our business? What y'all think? Sure, why not? Okay, Phil Spencer, take $70 billion with you and go get them. And Microsoft came to Activision's rescue. You know, came to their rescue, and Sony having exclusive rights to Call of Duty sat on the side and watched this and did nothing. So right now Microsoft seized the opportunity, you know, and turn a negative into a positive, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. But as far as the Call of Duty goes, they will get it. Now, is this going to improve their user base? Maybe, maybe not. You know. But right now, Microsoft is staying competitive by trying to build an ecosystem with the Xbox. You know, so yeah. But other than that, man, I mean, PlayStation user base will still be big because of the start that they had with Xbox. I mean, with PlayStation 1. That PlayStation 1 really put with that PlayStation 1 with Final Fantasy really solidified Sony, and they were able to build a huge base off of that. So Microsoft is battling the head start that Sony had with PlayStation 1. That's why their numbers, they only got like what, 67 million you know, of their Xbox users, while PlayStation like doubled it, you know. So it's because of the head start with PlayStation 1, you know, and what the PlayStation 1 brought to the gaming community, man. That PlayStation 1 is no joke. So you know, when the PlayStation 2 came out, that's when Microsoft came in. So they were always competing with Sony, you know, when it comes to like, I mean, user base wise, because of the head start that Sony had, you know. So yeah. I mean, for like 60, what's this? What, 63.7 million? That's a pretty good size number, you know what I'm saying? But now that they got that user base now, okay, now it's time to build a ecosystem now, you know. So, and I think they're on the right path, but will they surpass Sony? Remains to be seen, man, because 151 million point 4, that is big, man. That is big. So the only thing Microsoft can do is stay competitive, you know. They can't just like walk around with their heads down like this. They have to keep their heads up and stay competitive, you know. So, but right now, I mean, and then keep moving, you know. That's all they can do, you know. And go on from there. I think another thing that hurts, I think Xbox, when they didn't take that DRM, when they didn't take the DRM pretty serious, you know, when they did not take the DRMs with Xbox, you know, where people could play their digital games offline. I think that hurted them too. You know, another thing that hurted them was their enforcement team and the way they went about banning people. You know, a lot of their console bans were petty. You know, and some of their console bans were made up, and it's like they were blaming other people for taking what the hacker does and then placing it on somebody else and let them take the blame for it. You know, so that, to me, those two hurt the Xbox user base. You know, the enforcement team and that DRM situation. You know, because I think when people wanted to play their games offline, they couldn't do it, and they kept ignoring it, thinking it wasn't serious. But then it became so big now. Then they finally, all of a sudden, they're coming out talking about they wanna have people play their now people can play their games offline. But to me, it's too little, too late, because when people were bringing this up from the very beginning, they should have taken this serious and stopped trying to ignore it. But the other dagger to their user base now is the Xbox enforcement team. It really hurted them, man, because when you're banning people at that rate, like I made in a video before, when I said Xbox console bans means PlayStation user base gets bigger, and it does, because when you ban somebody on Xbox, they're gonna be like, do I want to go back over there? You know, you know. Do I want to play Xbox games again after what I just went through? No. That person, 90%, 99% of the time, that person gonna be like, no, I'm not going back. So that hurted their user base when it comes to the, you know, to the Xbox. And like the saying goes, you reap what you sow. And you know, it's something that Microsoft's gonna have to live with. You know, because the amount of people that probably got banned on Xbox, they're on PlayStation now playing. So who fault is that? Microsoft. But other than that, man, they have to stay competitive to compete against the PlayStation user base. They have to. They have to stay competitive, and then go on from there. Because Sony got a huge head start with the PS1. Nintendo, on the other hand, they've been around, you know. So, you know, a lot of people that bought the Switch were from the Game Boy. It's from the Game Boy user base, you know, from all the Game Boy user. It's from the Game Boy user base. So yeah, that's why they're doing doing the numbers that they're doing right now, you know. They've been in the industry a long time, you know. So you know, they had a big if you count all the Game Boys up that they ever made, all the Game Boys that they ever made, and then bring all that number together, then you'll see why the Switch number is so big, because a lot of the people that are playing on the Switch are from the Game Boy user base. So yeah, but other than that, Microsoft, you know, Sony will always have that user, that a bigger user base because of the PlayStation 1. You know, that's why the numbers are like this. When Sony came through with the PlayStation 1, you know, once Nintendo and Square had that fallout, PlayStation user base was like this, and then you add that PlayStation 2 on it. Oh yeah. So yeah, but for right now, all Microsoft can do is stay competitive in this console market. Yep. Anyway, latest video for y'all to enjoy. Nice talking to you people again. Chris, still a Star Wars and Star Trek thing.